Hello and welcome back to another episode on the Ideal Wealth Grower YouTube channel. My name is Axel Meyer-Höfer. I'm the founder of Ideal Wealth Grower and your host for this video today. And we're doing it obviously today with Louis, one of our cats in the background, making sure that I'm doing it right. So what are we gonna talk about in today's episode? And what I have thought about for today is a little bit different, and it's not so directly involved or so directly related to the real estate investing that we typically talk about. It goes a little bit broader, a little bit further out, and I would kind of give it the title in a sense, don't give away your power or don't give away your standing. And what do I mean by this? I recently had a conversation with one of the folks that has contacted me and had asked me for advice. How can I go about making my investments in residential real estate? What are your experiences? Do you have somebody for insurance? Do you have somebody that can help me with my financing and so forth? And so we really kind of developed a nice relationship and we got into it, and I referred him to a few things. And ultimately, we had a discussion that really kind of resonated with me in the context of how are we oftentimes being perceived? What have we allowed other people to kind of do to us or treat us in a certain way? And so let me go a little deeper and tell you what I mean by that. When I talk about power, I'm mainly thinking about the typical situation when somebody has a service or product to offer and sell, and I am or you are the customer who is actually in business to consider buying that product or getting involved with that service. When you think about it purely from a kind of like meta perspective, you're looking at the whole situation as if you were drawing it up on a piece of paper. On first glance looks like, okay, here's somebody who has something to sell, here's somebody who is ready or willing to buy. We are basically on the same level. As soon, on the other hand, as you get into a practical situation, oftentimes that changes. And I believe it has to do with what we have, and I'm talking here mainly about my experience in the United States. I don't necessarily know for any international viewers of this video if that applies in your area as well. But here in the United States, one of the things that is very common is that organizations who have a service or a product to offer associate certain things, what they call rules, with that service and with that product. Now, what does that really mean? Let's take two examples. The first example is you make the decision, your car is kind of getting old, is constantly breaking down and so forth and so forth. So you make the decision, I want to get a new car. And you may have done a little bit of research. You've gone on Google, you have thought about it, you talked to your spouse or within your family, what kind of car should it be? And you have decided, okay, it should be this kind of car, whether it's a regular car or a sports car, a convertible, a minivan, a pickup truck, SUV, whatever kind of car. So you settled on this is the kind of car. And in the vast majority of cases, while you are on your own, you probably also decided, okay, I want this brand or maybe one or two brands, but not every type of brand that is out there. Most people settle down to one or two that you want to seriously go. And then you actually say, okay, so now let's make an appointment or let's go and visit a car dealership and actually look at the car. Get an experience with the car. Maybe take a test drive with the car. So when you approach and get to that dealership, you get out of your current old car and you go onto the lot and you look at a couple of cars and you look at what kind they have and what kind of colors they have and what kind of equipment they have. Very sure there is one of the salespeople coming to you and is going to say, okay, looks like you're in the business for a car. How can I help you? All very friendly, all very nice. You tell them that you're looking for a particular car and you would like to take a closer look, and they get the keys and they show you and they offer you a test drive, all of that. Good. So now let's just take this one step further and you say, okay, so yeah, that one is really nice and the price is probably within the range. What do we need to do to actually make that deal happen? And they're going to ask you, do you going to pay cash or do you want to finance? And in this day and age, especially with the low interest rates, the very vast majority of people will probably say, no, I want to finance it. Okay. So then they bring you into the dealership and put you at a nice desk, and then you start basically filling out forms. Who you are, what's your address, all that kind of stuff. And then we ultimately get to a point to say, now let's talk about price. And you may have done your research and you know this particular car, you would be willing to pay $28,000 for this car. And so when the salesperson says, okay, this car has all these bells and whistles and blah, 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 all this stuff, you say, okay, well, I'm offering $28,000 for this car. Now, you have two reactions that can happen. Either they like, oh no, in no way, this is way too low, this is a $40,000 car. Or they might say, well, that's different than what we had on the label. Let me go and talk to my manager. Then they leave you there, sitting there. They ask you if you want a glass of water or some coffee, and they come back 20 minutes later and say, I talked to my manager. We can't do 28,000. We need to have at least 30. And you can go back and forth, and you might have negotiations, right? But what I'm getting to when it comes to don't give away your power is the aspect, as soon as, let's say you agree ultimately on 29,000 for this car, then it oftentimes feels like the dynamic is switching. Now the salesperson is in this belief that you are no longer at this level, that this situation has occurred, the sale is done. Now let me tell you everything you, my customer, have to do to follow my rules, or the rules of this dealership. You have to fill out this form. You have to tell me all this information. I want to know your bank information. I want to know your credit report. I need you to get this kind of insurance. I need you to have this particular warranty thing signed. You have to give away this and so forth. And we get into this conditioning, in this belief that since we now have made the decision that we want to get this car for $29,000, we have to follow all these things. And that point where you're going from here to here, and this is you gave away your power. Now, with a car, it's probably a little bit more obvious that if you really want that car, they have, in a sense, that power. It's a little different when we're talking about, in our context, with real estate investing. Because the point when this shift is happening is really only after the property has closed, meaning like you have now really assumed ownership. But the intention from going from eye level to this situation is occurring much sooner. Let me give you an example. You have said, I want to buy 123 Ballroom Street in this location for $130,000. It's a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house. It has everything that you like. And what we need in the deal is, on the one hand, to say, okay, I want to secure this house for me to purchase. So from right now, it is owned by the turnkey provider to bring it into your own ownership. And you're aware, like any purchase of any real estate, it is a whole bunch of steps that have to happen. So what's happening first is to sign a contract that says, I, Axel, want to buy 123 Ballroom Street for $130,000, and as soon as possible, and I want to finance it 80% bank money, 20% my own money. That's what the contract says. But this situation where we hear and the attempt to make it switch to lose my power starts already with saying by the seller, well, yeah, we want to have that contract and we want to sell this house to you, but we also want you to sign a clause that if we do the appraisal, which is highly recommended and oftentimes required if you want to finance the property, when we do the appraisal and the appraisal value doesn't come in at 130 like we agreed to sell it for, but let's say at 125, you actually gonna pay the difference. This is the statement. Now, as soon as you say, oh, that's obviously a rule, you're here. It's not a rule. It's something that they say they want. How do you maintain your power? Is by getting better in the way you negotiate and maintain your power and your position. How do you do that? when you think about it, by somebody saying, I'm selling you something like a house for $130,000, and I just renovated it and I determined this price as a fair price. But at the same time, I need you to sign a clause that if it doesn't appraise to the price that I think is fair, then you have to pay the difference. It's basically saying, I'm not really sure if it's really worth this much. And if you want to stay at this high level equal power, you would want to say in response, no, I'm not going to sign that. You take this out of the contract because you believe in the value and quality of your product. And if the value and the quality of your product is there, it will appraise at or above the 130,000. So we don't need a clause for any circumstance when it's below. Right? Now, what I would recommend to maintain your power in this kind of situation is to put a clause in to say, should it actually appraise below, then we negotiate what the new sales price should be and how we can come to an agreement. So rather than saying, only if it appraises, I'm going to buy it, and take out the clause completely, which puts you into this position to say, no, I want to maintain a good relationship on equal eye level. And to do this, I'm willing to negotiate if for some reason you miscalculated the price and it came in a little lower. But it also should include at that point, so we negotiate if the appraisal is below, rather than just saying I have to come up with the money. And if we can't come to an agreement in that negotiation, then we are willing to walk away and I get my earnest money back. Now, you might think, okay, well, that makes sense, right? They give it a fair price, it appraises at a fair price. That is 99% of the cases. One thing that you have to keep in mind is you always want to maintain a confident position. And the reason that you have confidence is because you are well informed. And one of the things, and I've said this in previous videos, is never underestimate the power that you have with negotiation. We are conditioned more and more, and this is where the similarity to the buying a car comes from. We are conditioned to be told, here are the rules that we as the organization who has something to sell have set for ourselves, and they are being portrayed to you as if they are laws. And while I'm a big proponent to say we should always stay within the rules and restrictions and guidance and laws that are out there within the legal frame, but then there is a whole different ballgame of what organizations determine for themselves on how they want to operate. So if an organization says we do great renovations, high quality, but we still want to have a clause that observes us if we set the price too high, that is their rule. That is not written in any law. That's totally their rule. And it's up to you to decide, do I want to stick with this rule? Do I want to accept this rule or not? But the way it is often portrayed is you have to give away your power. You have to, if you want to deal with us, follow our rules. Not the general rules, but our specific rules that we have given ourselves. So that's one example. Another one in the same context of real estate is, if you ask somebody, how much is your fee for managing the property? Almost every organization, especially turnkey organization, will have a certain number. Most of them, it has kind of settled in that way, have the number 10%, right? And that kind of makes sense. That's a round number that is acceptable, that is not excessive or something like that. But what's the situation if you, for example, like a friend of mine who contacted me recently says, okay, I sold a house, I'm in a 1031 exchange, and the way it looks like I'm going to buy 6, 8, or 9 houses, depending exactly what the prices are. So if you or I or anybody else goes to a turnkey provider and says, I want to buy out of the 6 or 8 or 9, I buy 5 from you. And you say, so how much is your property management fee? And they say 10%. You say, well, you should say, not give away your power and say, oh, okay, that's obviously your rule, can't do anything about it. No, you should ask, what's your rule when I buy 5 at a time? Like I did, and the rule suddenly changed to, there was no rule, and we negotiated 8%. Now, in the current market, where there's a lot of demand and very little supply, you may not necessarily be able to do that. But keeping your power and your confidence is to understand what is a real law that you have to follow, And what are rules and guidance and things that organizations have given themselves where they make it sound like you have to? There's no way around it. Now keep in mind, keeping your power also means being willing and able to walk away from a deal. Right? Because one of the things that happens both with the car and it sometimes also happens with real estate investments and other things like it is that the sales process has one really important component to it, and that is getting you emotionally connected to the item that you're interested in. They're going to portray, the salespeople are going to portray that car or that house or whatever else the thing is that you want to buy as such a thing, such a desirable thing, so much meeting what you're actually looking for that you say, I love it, I want it. And this part, I love it, is an emotional reaction. And then to deny yourself the satisfaction to say, I really want it, I really have a connection, I really like it, I love it, and then walk away makes it really harder. And every salesperson that is worth their money knows that. So keeping your power, and that's the last part that I want to get across to you, is keeping your power also means don't ever get so attached that your emotional desire to have something, whether it's a service or a product, a house or a car or something like that, is so overwhelming that you feel you're losing out by walking away. Right? Because if you really think about it, for the few cases where you may have done it, or I can challenge you to say, just try it. Think about something that you want, go into a store where they have that, look at it, and if it can't be negotiated down to the price you're willing to do, just walk away and see how that feels. A day or two later, you will realize there are plenty of other cars, there are plenty of other car dealerships, there are plenty of other places who sell houses. It doesn't really have to be this one, because you don't buy it for how it looks. You don't buy it for exactly where it is. In reality, you buy it for its performance. You buy the car because it fills certain needs in a certain way, and you buy the house because it provides a certain level of cash flow at a good quality with good tenants over a long period of time. Is that one house that you have been offered the only one that can fulfill this? No. But it's hard when we have made an emotional connection to walk away and be realistic enough to say, I have the power to decide which one I want, and if this number 1 deal doesn't work out and number 2 deal doesn't work out, then there's number 3. And if it takes that, there's also number 99. So don't give away your power by believing that everything that you're being told their rules are or their guidance are is the same like law. You want to keep it here. Don't let it go this way. When something happens in the process of a deal where you have already said, I want this car, I want this house, and something doesn't work out, like the appraisal coming in too low, stay here and say, okay, what are we going to do? And don't sign any documents that give away the power right away before we ever even did the appraisal. Keep it here, and when the appraisal comes low, the second part of maintaining your power is negotiate. And the third one is, even if you have developed an emotional connection to, let's say, that car or to that house, maintain the power to say, I can walk away, there's plenty of other houses, plenty of other cars that I can get, if I'm willing to sacrifice that emotional connection that the salesperson very artfully has basically created for me. So if you follow those 3 things, and I'm not saying those are the only ones, but when you think about what can I do to maintain my power, stay in this eye-level situation with whoever you get a service or a product from, you will have better results in the long run. And it takes practice like everything, but I want to encourage you to practice that behavior. Always remind yourself that you can pretty much almost always negotiate. In my experience, the higher the price for an item is, the more you have an ability to negotiate. All right, so that's it for today. How do you actually maintain your power? This doesn't just apply in real estate investing. That's why I also used the car example, and pretty much for all kinds of other things. You want to be on the eye level. If you like this video, I like to ask you to give it a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed yet, please hit the subscribe button and the little notification bell so you get notified when we have more videos. And the one thing I would really like to ask you to do, kind of like as a favor, is share the video and other videos on our channel with your network. It helps us because we can help more people. It helps you because your standing in your community and network will increase when you can give them something that actually helps them to get better educated and more aware. And it helps overall because the YouTube algorithm is going to look at how many people are watching these videos and then recommend them automatically to more people. So with that being said, I hope you really benefited from this video. Be well, stay safe, and I see you in the next one.